This story is inspired by real-life events, contains fictional elements, and is not suitable for viewers under the age of 18.
By the time Vanessa realized she had been caught, it wasn't because Nathan had raised his voice. It was because he had stopped asking questions. The apartment on the Upper West Side was too quiet for a Tuesday night. Nathan Cole stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of bourbon resting untouched in his hand. Below, Manhattan pulsed with its usual indifference. Taxis weaving through traffic, neon reflections flickering against wet asphalt, strangers brushing past one another without consequence. Inside, everything paused. He checked the time again. 9:47 in the evening. Vanessa was late. Again. The sound of the elevator down the hall echoed faintly through the walls, followed by footsteps, measured, confident, familiar. Nathan didn't move. He didn't turn around. He just listened. The door unlocked. "Hey," Vanessa's voice floated in, light, effortless. "You're still up?" Nathan took a slow sip of bourbon before answering. "I could ask you the same thing." She stepped into the living room, heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. Her reflection appeared in the glass beside his, a silhouette first, then details sharpening, her tailored navy coat, her hair still perfectly styled, her lipstick untouched. "Long day," she said, slipping off her coat and draping it over the chair. "Client dinner ran over. You know how it is." Nathan turned slightly, just enough to look at her. Not fully, not directly. "Which client?" A pause, brief, almost imperceptible. "Elliot," she replied, smooth as ever. "Graves Holdings. I told you about the deal, remember?" Nathan nodded slowly, as if retrieving a memory. Right. He hadn't forgotten. He remembered everything. Vanessa moved toward the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water like this was any other night, like nothing had shifted, like the space between them wasn't growing wider by the day. "You should have eaten," she added casually. "I can order something if you want." "I already did." Another lie. She leaned against the counter, studying him now. "You've been quiet lately." Nathan finally turned to face her fully. "Have I?" "Yes." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "It's noticeable. Maybe I just don't have much to say." "That's not like you." He shrugged. "People change." Vanessa held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. There was something searching in her eyes. Not guilt, not yet, just calculation. "You're not upset about something, are you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Work, maybe." Nathan almost smiled. "Work. If only it were that simple." "No," he said. "Work's fine." "Then what is it?" There it was. The question she thought she controlled. Nathan set his glass down on the table with deliberate care. "Do you want the honest answer?" Vanessa's expression didn't falter. "Always." A lie so effortless it almost impressed him. "I think you're lying to me." The words landed softly. No anger, no accusation, just truth. Vanessa blinked once, then let out a small laugh. Perfectly timed. Perfectly pitched. "Nathan, come on." "About what?" "That's the part I'm still figuring out." She crossed her arms, shifting her weight, defensive, but subtle. "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" "Yes." Her tone sharpened just enough. "You're being paranoid." Nathan watched her closely now. Not what she said, but how she said it. The micro-expressions. The half-second delays. The way her fingers tightened against her arm. "I didn't accuse you of anything specific," he said calmly. "You jumped to that yourself." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "I'm tired," she snapped. "I don't have the energy for this tonight." Of course. Deflection. Exit strategy. Nathan nodded once. "That's fair." The tension lingered for a moment longer. Then she turned away, heading toward the bedroom. "We'll talk about this later," she tossed over her shoulder. He didn't respond. Because he knew they wouldn't. Not really. The bedroom door closed with a soft click. Nathan remained where he was, staring at the city lights as if they could offer clarity. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. A notification blinked on the screen, a location ping. Vanessa's phone, linked quietly, weeks ago under the guise of shared convenience. He opened the map, watched, analyzed. The data didn't lie, even when people did. Nathan exhaled slowly, the weight of something shifting inside him.
Not breaking, not yet. Just settling into place. He wasn't angry, not anymore. Anger was reactive. This required something else, something colder, something precise. He set the phone down and picked up his glass again, finishing the bourbon in one steady motion. Across the room, Vanessa's laughter echoed faintly. She was on the phone now, her voice softer, lighter than it had been with him. Nathan didn't need to hear the words. He already knew enough. And for the first time since the doubt had taken root, a quiet certainty replaced it.
He wouldn't confront her again. Not like this. Not without proof. She couldn't escape. Not without a moment she couldn't control. The trap wasn't built in anger. It was built in silence. And Vanessa had just stepped into it, without even realizing it. The first crack didn't come with a confession. It came with a notification that disappeared too quickly. Nathan noticed it on a Thursday morning. Ordinary. Forgettable. The kind of day people don't remember unless something goes wrong. Vanessa had left her phone on the kitchen island while she stepped into the bathroom. The sound of the shower starting moments later. Her screen lit up. A message. Just a name and the beginning of a sentence before it vanished. Elliot. Last night was gone. Nathan didn't touch the phone. He didn't need to. His mind had already filled in the rest. He stood there for a moment longer than necessary, staring at the blank screen as if it might betray something else. But it remained still. Innocent. Silent. Like her. By the time Vanessa returned, wrapped in a white robe, her hair damp and her expression composed, Nathan was already seated at the table, scrolling through his tablet. Or at least pretending to. "You're up early," she said, reaching for her coffee. "So are you." She smiled faintly. "Big presentation today." Nathan nodded. "With Elliot?" A flicker, so small it would have been invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. But Nathan was. "Yes," she said smoothly. "He's leading the client's side." Nathan tapped his screen, as if distracted. "You two seem to be working closely lately." "It's called doing my job." The edge in her voice was subtle, but deliberate. Nathan looked up then, meeting her eyes. "I didn't say it wasn't." Vanessa held his gaze, then looked away first, taking a sip of her coffee. "You're reading into things again." Again. That word carried weight. History. Blame. Nathan leaned back in his chair. "Am I?" "Yes." She set the cup down a little too hard. "You do this, Nathan. You build these narratives in your head, and then you expect me to defend myself against something that isn't even real." Her tone wasn't defensive. It was controlled, rehearsed. And that was what made it dangerous. Nathan watched her for a long moment. "I didn't ask you to defend anything, but you implied it." She crossed her arms. "Don't twist this around. I'm not twisting anything. You are." Her voice sharpened. "You're making it sound like I'm doing something wrong just because I work late or have male colleagues. That's not what I said. It's what you meant." There it was. The shift. From explanation to accusation. Nathan exhaled slowly, keeping his voice even. "So if I asked you directly, if I said I'm uncomfortable with how much time you're spending with him, what would you say?" Vanessa didn't hesitate. "I'd say that's your problem, not mine." The words landed harder than they should have. Not because they were loud, but because they were cold, detached. Nathan studied her face, searching for something, anything that resembled hesitation, guilt, conflict. There was none, just irritation. "You don't think it's worth addressing?" he asked quietly. "I think it's exhausting," she replied. "Having to constantly reassure you when I've done nothing wrong." Nothing wrong. Nathan almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he nodded once. "All right." Vanessa blinked, thrown off by the lack of resistance. "That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know, something." "You just drop it like that." Nathan picked up his tablet again. "You said there's nothing to address." "Yes, but..." She stopped herself, frustration creeping into her expression. "This is exactly what I mean. You shut down instead of communicating. I asked you a direct question, and I answered it. Then we're done here." The simplicity of it unsettled her more than anger would have. Nathan could see it. The slight tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers tapped against the counter, the microsecond delay before she spoke again. "You're being passive-aggressive," she said. "No," Nathan replied calmly. "I'm respecting your answer." Vanessa let out a sharp breath. "God, this is unbelievable." She grabbed her bag, checking her phone quickly. Too quickly. And slipped it inside without another glance. "I have to go," she said, already moving toward the door. "We'll talk about this tonight." Nathan didn't look up this time. "Sure." The door closed behind her with more force than necessary. Silence followed. Heavy. Lingering. Nathan waited a full 30 seconds before setting the tablet down. Then he reached for his own phone. Opened the tracking app. Watched. The small blue dot. Vanessa. Moved steadily down the street, exactly where it should be. For now. Nathan leaned back, his gaze drifting to the empty coffee cup she'd left behind. Lipstick mark. Perfect. Untouched. He stood, walking over slowly, and picked it up. For a moment, he just held it, studying something so ordinary, so mundane, as if it might reveal something deeper. But the truth wasn't in objects, it was in patterns. And patterns didn't lie. Nathan set the cup down and moved to his laptop, opening a folder buried beneath layers of encrypted files. Inside were timestamps, location logs, screenshots, notes, weeks of quiet observation. He clicked on the most recent entry, Tuesday, 10:42 in the evening, location, Midtown Manhattan. Not office, not client building, hotel. Nathan stared at the word for a long time. Hotel. He remembered that night. The same excuse, the same tone, the same effortless lie. His jaw tightened slightly, but his expression remained otherwise unchanged. Emotion was noise, and Nathan had learned, over time, to filter noise out. He opened a new document and began typing. Dates, times, names, Elliot Graves, every interaction, every overlap, every inconsistency. What had started as a suspicion was becoming something else now. A structure. A pattern with weight. With proof. Nathan paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a brief moment, just a moment, something flickered beneath the surface. Not anger. Not even betrayal. Something quieter. Disappointment. He had given her the chance to tell the truth. She hadn't just lied. She had chosen to lie. Repeatedly. Deliberately. And worse. Convincingly. Nathan leaned back, closing his eyes for a second. Then he exhaled and opened them again. Clear. Focused. Decided. This wasn't about catching her in a lie anymore. It was about showing her she couldn't escape it. Not this time. Not ever. Across the room, the city continued moving, unaware of the quiet war unfolding behind glass walls. Nathan reached for his phone again, watching as Vanessa's location updated. Still moving. Still predictable. For now, he allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Not out of satisfaction, but recognition. The first crack had appeared. And once something cracked, it never truly went back to what it was before. Nathan stopped asking questions. That was the first thing Vanessa noticed. At first, she thought it was a relief. No more late-night conversations that felt like interrogations. No more subtle probing disguised as concern. No more long silences that demanded answers she didn't want to give. Instead, Nathan became agreeable, predictable, quiet. "You're okay with me working late tonight?" she asked one evening, slipping on her heels by the door. Nathan didn't even look up from his laptop. Of course. No hesitation. No tension. Vanessa paused, her hand lingering on the doorknob. "You don't want to know where? If it matters, you'll tell me." The answer was neutral, almost detached. It unsettled her. But only for a second. "All right," she said lightly, masking the flicker of discomfort. "Don't wait up." "I won't." The door closed behind her. Nathan didn't move for a full minute. Then, slowly, he lifted his eyes to the screen. Not the work document in front of him, but the smaller window tucked into the corner. A map. A moving signal. Vanessa. He reached for his notebook. Not a physical one, but a digital file, meticulously organized, categorized, time-stamped. Every movement had a place. Every deviation meant something. He had stopped reacting and started observing. It became a system. Mornings were routine, predictable. Vanessa left at 8:15, always with the same energy. Composed, efficient, distant. Nathan noted everything, even the smallest variations. What she wore. How long she checked her phone before leaving. Whether she kissed him goodbye. Lately, she didn't. Afternoons were quieter. Nathan worked from home more often now, claiming increased flexibility in his role. In reality, it allowed him to monitor without interruption. Evenings were where the patterns shifted. At first, it was once a week, then twice, then, without announcement, 3 times. Late nights, client dinners, last-minute meetings, unexpected delays, excuses that followed no logical consistency. But her movements did. Nathan tracked every location ping, every stop that didn't align with her office or known client addresses. He cross-referenced them with public records, business listings, hotel check-ins. He didn't guess. He verified. And slowly, the shape of the truth began to form. The first time he said Elliot's name out loud, to himself, it felt strangely ordinary, not explosive, not dramatic, just inevitable. Nathan sat at his desk late one night, the room lit only by the glow of his screens. On one monitor, Vanessa's location rested stationary in Midtown. On the other, a profile. Elliot Graves, 42, CEO of Graves Holdings, divorced.
Known for high-stakes acquisitions and an even more aggressive personal life. If the rumors scattered across business forums were to be believed, Nathan didn't care about rumors, but he noted them anyway. Patterns existed everywhere, even in gossip. He scrolled through articles, interviews, public appearances. Elliot had a presence, the kind that commanded attention without asking for it. Sharp suits, controlled smile, eyes that didn't reveal much, but suggested everything. The kind of man Vanessa would notice. The kind of man who noticed women like Vanessa. Nathan leaned back, studying a photo from a recent corporate event. Vanessa stood beside Elliot, not too close, but not distant either. There was something in the space between them. Familiarity, comfort. Nathan zoomed in slightly. Her hand rested lightly on Elliot's arm. Casual, intentional, not accidental. He saved the image. Days turned into weeks. Nathan said less, observed more. Anna adapted quickly to the new dynamic, slipping deeper into her double life with growing confidence. Without resistance, there was no threat. Without confrontation, there was no urgency to be careful. That was her mistake. One Friday night, the pattern broke. Not in a way Vanessa could see, but in a way Nathan had been waiting for. Her location didn't just stop in Midtown. It lingered, longer than usual, past midnight, past 1 a.m. Nathan watched the signal without blinking, his fingers resting lightly against the desk. Then, a shift. The location updated, not to home, not to a known route, but to a place he hadn't logged before. Nathan's eyes narrowed slightly as he opened a secondary window, pulling up the address. A boutique hotel, discreet, expensive, designed for privacy. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he nodded once, almost to himself. Confirmation didn't bring anger. It brought clarity. The next morning, Vanessa walked in at 7:12 in the morning, earlier than expected. Nathan was already awake, seated at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. He didn't look surprised, didn't look anything at all. Early start, he asked calmly. Vanessa froze for half a second before recovering. Yeah, stayed over at a friend's place. It was closer to the office. Nathan nodded. Which friend? Another pause. Claire, she said quickly. Nathan took a slow sip of coffee. Claire moved to Boston 3 months ago. Silence. Sharp. Immediate. Vanessa's eyes flickered. Not panic, not yet, but something close. Then she laughed, a little too loud. Oh my God, Nathan. I meant before. I stayed at her place before she moved, and I was thinking about it. I didn't sleep much, okay? You're dissecting every word. Her tone shifted, defensive, slightly irritated. Familiar territory. Nathan held her gaze for a moment, then he nodded again. Right. Just that. Nothing more.
Anna stared at him, waiting. For what? A reaction, an argument, something she could push against. But there was nothing. Nathan stood, placing his empty cup in the sink. I have a call in 10 minutes. And just like that, he walked away. Vanessa remained in the kitchen, unmoving.
For the first time, something didn't feel right, not because of what Nathan said, but because of what he didn't. In his office, Nathan closed the door quietly behind him. He didn't start his call. Instead, he returned to his desk, opening the file, adding a new entry, Friday, 1:08 in the morning. Location, the Mercer Hotel. Duration, 6 hours and 4 minutes. False statement provided, stayed at Claire's place. He paused, then added one more line. Confidence level, confirmed. Nathan stared at the screen for a moment longer before saving the document. The pattern was no longer forming, it was complete. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. There it was.
The truth. Cold. Structured. Undeniable. And yet, he felt nothing chaotic. No impulse to confront. No desire to explode. Only one clear thought. This wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning of something else. Something deliberate. Something controlled. Nathan reached for his phone, his eyes settling once again on Vanessa's location, now stationary in their apartment. So close. And yet so far from understanding what was coming. He allowed himself a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Not satisfaction. Not yet. Just anticipation. Because Vanessa still believed she was ahead of him. Still believed she was in control. And that belief was exactly what made the trap possible. Nathan didn't need more proof. But he gathered it anyway. Not out of doubt. Out of discipline. The human mind, he knew, was unreliable under pressure. Memory distorted. Emotions interfered. But data held its shape. It didn't bend under guilt or fear. It didn't rewrite itself to survive. So Nathan kept building. It started with access. Vanessa had always been careful. Just not careful enough. Her laptop, synced automatically to their shared home network, backed up fragments of her digital life without her noticing. Calendar entries. Temporary files. Auto-filled forms that revealed more than she intended. Nathan didn't hack, he simply observed what was already there. A meeting labeled E.G., strategy alignment repeated twice a week. Odd hours, no official record in her company's shared calendar. A rideshare receipt sent to her personal email, but archived, not deleted. Pickup, Midtown office. Drop off, the Mercer Hotel. Nathan clicked through each file slowly, methodically, like assembling pieces of a puzzle he already understood. He wasn't searching for confirmation anymore, he was building a case. 3 nights later, he found the message thread. It wasn't where it should have been. Anna had deleted it from her phone. But not from the cloud. Not completely. Fragments remained. Backups, cached previews, partial sync logs, incomplete sentences, time stamps, enough to reconstruct what she thought was gone. Nathan stared at the screen, his jaw tightening ever so slightly as he read. Elliot, you looked incredible tonight. Vanessa, you always say that. Elliot, because it's always true. Elliot, same place Friday. Vanessa, Nathan thinks I'm with Claire. We're fine. Nathan didn't scroll further for a moment. He let that line sit. We're fine. Not I'm fine. Not it's nothing. We're fine. A shared illusion. A mutual understanding. Nathan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly through his nose. There it was. Not suspicion. Not theory. Truth. Clear. Intimate. Indisputable. That night, Vanessa came home earlier than usual. 7:32 in the evening. Nathan noticed immediately. Pattern deviation. He was sitting in the living room, a book open in his hands, though he hadn't turned a page in the last 10 minutes. You're home early, he said, glancing up. Vanessa smiled, walking toward him with a lightness that felt intentional. I thought we could have dinner together. It's been a while. Nathan closed the book slowly. It has. She leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek. The gesture was practiced, familiar. And now, meaningless. I made a reservation, she continued. That Italian place you like. Nathan studied her face for a moment, searching for something beneath the surface. Guilt? Regret? Anything real? But Vanessa met his gaze with ease. If she felt anything, she had buried it well. Sure, he said. Dinner was perfect. That was the problem. Vanessa laughed at the right moments, asked about his work. Reached for his hand across the table like nothing had changed, like everything hadn't.
Nathan played his role just as well. He responded, engaged,
even smiled once or twice. An outsider would have seen a couple reconnecting, healing. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Nathan was observing every word, every glance, every inconsistency between the woman sitting across from him and the one in the messages. "You've been distant lately," Vanessa said softly, swirling her wine. "I miss you." Nathan tilted his head slightly. "Do you?" "Of course I do." The answer came too quickly, too clean. Nathan nodded, as if accepting it. "Then why does it feel like you're somewhere else most of the time?" Vanessa's smile faltered. "Just for a second. I've just been busy, Nathan. You know how demanding things have been." With Elliot? There it was again. That flicker. Smaller this time. More controlled. "Yes," she said. "He's a major client. This deal could define my entire quarter." Nathan leaned back slightly, his gaze steady. "And the late nights? The hotels?" Vanessa froze. Not visibly. Not to anyone who wasn't watching closely. But Nathan saw it. The microsecond delay, the shift in her breathing. Then, recovery. "Hotels," she repeated, letting out a soft laugh. "Nathan, what are you talking about? I'm asking a question, and I'm telling you it doesn't make sense." Her tone sharpened, defensive now. "You're taking normal work situations and turning them into something else." "Am I?" "Yes." She set her glass down firmly. "This is exactly what I meant before. You're creating problems that don't exist." Nathan held her gaze, unmoving. "You've never stayed at the Mercer Hotel." The name landed like a blade. Vanessa's expression didn't collapse. It shifted, subtly, eyes narrowing, mind racing, calculating. "I've had meetings there," she said carefully. "It's a common place for business dinners. At 1 a.m. Another pause. Longer this time. "You're crossing a line, Nathan. Answer the question." "I just did." "No," he said quietly. "You avoided it." Anna leaned forward, her voice dropping. "I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated over baseless accusations." "Baseless?" "Yes." Her eyes flashed now. "If you don't trust me, that's your issue, not mine." There it was again. The shift. Blame redirected. Control reasserted. Nathan let the silence stretch between them. Then, he nodded. "All right." Vanessa blinked. "What?" "All right," he repeated calmly. "We'll drop it." The tension didn't disappear. It changed. Vanessa studied him carefully now, something uneasy creeping into her expression. "That's it?" she asked. Nathan reached for his glass, taking a slow sip. "You said there's nothing going on. And you believe me." Nathan met her eyes. And for the first time that night, he smiled. Not warmly, not reassuringly, but knowingly. "I believe you've made your position clear." The words settled between them, heavier than anything he'd said before. Vanessa leaned back slowly, her fingers tightening around her napkin. Something had shifted, not in the accusation, but in him. Later that night, back in the apartment, Vanessa disappeared into the bedroom without another word. Nathan remained in the living room, waiting, listening to the faint sounds of movement behind the closed door. A drawer opening, closing. Her voice, low, hushed, on the phone. He didn't need to hear the words. He already knew who was on the other end. Nathan stood and walked to his office, closing the door behind him. He didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. He opened his laptop and pulled up the file. All of it. The messages, the locations, the timestamps, the patterns. Then he created a new folder. Final sequence. Inside it, he began organizing everything. Not just as evidence, but as a narrative. A timeline. A story that couldn't be denied, couldn't be twisted, couldn't be escaped. Nathan paused for a moment, his fingers resting on the keyboard. This was the point of no return. Not for the relationship. That had already crossed it. But for what came next. He wasn't going to confront her again. Not privately. Not emotionally. Vanessa had made one thing clear. She would deny, deflect, manipulate, until the truth was undeniable. So Nathan would give her exactly that. A truth she couldn't outrun. Not in private, Not in public. Not anywhere. He saved the folder and leaned back in his chair, his expression calm, composed, decided. This was no longer about discovering the truth. It was about revealing it, at the right time, in the right way, with maximum impact. Across the apartment, Vanessa's laughter echoed faintly again. Soft, intimate, meant for someone else. Nathan closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them. Cold, focused, unshaken. The affair was no longer a question. It was a fact, and facts, when used correctly, could destroy everything. Nathan didn't rush. Rushing was for people driven by emotion.
Anger, desperation, fear. He had none of those left. What remained was clarity, and clarity required precision. The invitation arrived on a Monday morning. Vanessa forwarded it to him with a short message: "You should come, it's important." Nathan opened the attachment. Graves Holdings Annual Strategic Gala. Location: the Astoria Grand Ballroom, Midtown Manhattan. Attendees: investors, media, executive leadership. Vanessa's name was listed among the keynote presenters. Elliot Graves would be hosting. Nathan read the details once, then again, and then he smiled. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. This wasn't just an event, it was a stage. That evening, Vanessa brought it up casually over dinner. "You got the invite, right?" she asked, cutting into her salmon. "I did. You should be there," she continued, her tone light but intentional. "It's a big moment for me." Nathan nodded. "I wouldn't miss it." Vanessa smiled, satisfied. She thought she was controlling the narrative.
What she didn't realize was that Nathan had already rewritten the ending. The setup began that night. Nathan moved into his office, closing the door behind him, isolating himself from the rest of the apartment. And from her. On his screen, the folder labeled Final Sequence waited. He opened it. Files, images, audio clips, location logs. Each piece of evidence had its place. But now, they needed timing, structure, impact. Nathan didn't just want the truth revealed, he wanted it understood, felt, impossible to ignore. He started with the timeline. A visual reconstruction of Vanessa's affair. Clean, chronological, undeniable. Dates aligned with her client dinners. Locations mapped against hotel check-ins. Messages placed exactly where they belonged. Not overwhelming, not chaotic, just irrefutable. Nathan paused, studying the sequence. Then, he added something new. Context. Screenshots of Vanessa's public persona. Her LinkedIn posts about integrity in leadership. Her interviews discussing professional ethics. Her carefully curated image of discipline and control. He placed them side by side with the evidence. Not to embarrass her, but to expose the contradiction. The lie beneath the image. Next came access. Nathan didn't hack the event. He didn't need to. He simply used what was already available. The gala would feature a multimedia presentation. Slides, videos, brand messaging, projected across multiple screens, controlled from a central system. Nathan researched the event coordinators, the tech team, the schedule. Every detail mattered. He found the weak point. A third-party media consultant, outsourced, overworked, responsible for managing presentation uploads. Human, fallible. Nathan reached out under a different name. Calm, professional, credible. He provided a file labeled as an updated segment for Vanessa's keynote. The timing was perfect.
Last-minute changes were expected. No one questioned it. He tested everything twice, then 3 times. A duplicate system at home, mirroring the exact sequence of the event. Slides transitioning, audio syncing, images appearing in precise order. No glitches, no room for error. Because, when the moment came, there would be no second chance. Days passed. Vanessa remained unaware. If anything, she seemed more relaxed than before. The distance between them had become normal, comfortable, safe. "You've been different lately," she said one night, watching him from across the living room. Nathan glanced up from his laptop. "Different how?" "Calmer." She tilted her head slightly. "Less intense." Nathan considered that. "Is that a bad thing?" "No." She smiled faintly. "It's just unexpected." He returned the smile, measured and controlled. People adapt. Vanessa studied him for a moment longer, then nodded, accepting the explanation. She wanted to believe it. That was enough. The final piece came unexpectedly. 3 nights before the gala, Vanessa was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Nathan didn't move immediately. He waited, counted the seconds, then stood and walked into the bedroom. The screen lit up again, a message preview. Elliot, Friday, after your speech, same room. Nathan stared at the words, not with anger, not with shock, but with something colder. Finality. He picked up the phone, not to unlock it, not to search, just to confirm what he already knew. Then he set it back down exactly where it had been. Unmoved, untouched, except for the knowledge it carried. Friday, after her speech, same room. Nathan returned to his office, closing the door behind him. He opened the timeline again, scrolled to the end, and added one final entry. Friday, 9:30 in the evening, projected. Location, the Astoria Grand/Private Suite. Event, post-presentation meeting, unofficial. He stared at it for a moment. Then he adjusted the sequence. Not before her speech, not after the event, but during. At the peak of attention, when every eye in the room would be on her. When her image mattered most. That was when the truth would surface. The night before the gala, Vanessa stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress. Elegant, precise, flawless. Nathan watched from the doorway. You look perfect, he said. She met his eyes in the reflection, smiling. I have to. You always do. Vanessa turned slightly, studying him. You're really coming tomorrow. I told you I would. Something softened in her expression. Relief, maybe. Or validation. Good, she said quietly. It means a lot. Nathan nodded once. He believed her. In that moment, it did. Later that night, after she had fallen asleep, Nathan stood alone in the living room. The city lights flickered against the glass. Unchanged, indifferent. He reached for his phone and opened the final sequence one last time.
Everything was in place. Every detail accounted for. Every variable controlled. There was no anger left in him. No hesitation. Only certainty. Vanessa thought she was walking into the most important night of her career. She was right, just not for the reasons she believed. Nathan locked his phone and set it down. Tomorrow, everything would change. Not because of what he would say, but because of what he would show. And once the truth was seen, there would be no rewriting it, no escaping it, no controlling it. Across the apartment, Vanessa slept peacefully, unaware, unprepared, still believing she was in control. Nathan looked toward the closed bedroom door, his expression unreadable. Then he turned away. The trap was set. All that remained was the moment it would close. The Astoria Grand Ballroom shimmered under layers of gold light and polished glass. Crystal chandeliers hung like constellations above a sea of tailored suits and silk gowns. Conversations blended into a low, sophisticated hum. Investors, executives, media figures, all orbiting around one shared purpose: power, influence, perception. Nathan stood near the back of the room, unnoticed, exactly where he wanted to be. From this distance, he could see everything clearly. The stage, the projection screens, the flow of attention moving like a living organism across the room. And at the center of it, Vanessa. She owned the space. Standing near the stage, dressed in a black gown that caught the light with every subtle movement, Vanessa smiled effortlessly as she spoke to a cluster of executives. Her posture was flawless. Her voice, when it carried, was confident and controlled. To everyone else, she was the embodiment of success. Nathan watched her closely. Not as her husband, but as a subject. Every gesture catalogued. Every expression measured. There was no visible crack. Not yet. Elliot Graves arrived 20 minutes later. The shift in the room was immediate. Subtle, but undeniable. Conversations recalibrated. Attention adjusted. Power recognized power. Nathan's eyes followed him. Elliot moved with practiced ease, shaking hands, exchanging brief words, his presence commanding without effort. Then, their eyes met, Vanessa's and Elliot's. Just for a second. Too brief for anyone else to notice. But long enough. Nathan saw it. The familiarity. The unspoken understanding. The private world hidden in plain sight. Elliot gave the slightest nod. Vanessa responded with the faintest smile. And just like that, they returned to their roles. Strangers, Professionals. Untouchable. Nathan checked the time. 8:12 p.m. Right on schedule. Ladies and gentlemen. The host's voice echoed through the ballroom, drawing attention toward the stage. Tonight, we highlight not only innovation, but leadership. And there is no better example of that than our next speaker. A pause. Applause began, building steadily. Please welcome Vanessa Cole. Vanessa stepped onto the stage with practiced grace. Applause followed her. Admiration. Respect. Everything she had built, everything she believed she controlled, was right there, in that moment. Nathan didn't move, didn't react. He simply watched. Vanessa began her speech. Clear, confident, measured. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady through the microphone. In today's world, leadership is no longer defined solely by results, but by integrity, by trust, by the ability to build relationships that last. Nathan almost smiled. Integrity. Trust. The words echoed through the room, polished and perfect. A narrative, a performance. And for a moment, it worked. Then, the first shift. Behind Vanessa, the screen flickered. Subtle, barely noticeable. She continued speaking, unaware. Nathan's gaze didn't waver. The slide changed, but not to the next part of her presentation. Instead, a timeline appeared, clean, minimal, white text against a black background. Vanessa Cole, activity log. Vanessa paused, just for a fraction of a second. Her eyes flicked behind her. Confusion. Then, she recovered. "As I was saying," she continued, her voice tightening almost imperceptibly. "Relationships require consistency." Another shift. The timeline expanded. Dates, times, locations. The Mercer Hotel. Repeated, patterned, precise. The room began to change. Conversations stilled. Eyes shifted, from Vanessa to the screen, then back again. A ripple of uncertainty moved through the audience. Vanessa turned fully this time. Her smile faltered. "What is this?" she asked, her voice no longer aligned with the script. No answer came, only the next piece. Images appeared, grainy at first, then sharper. Vanessa entering the hotel, Elliot beside her. Different nights, different angles, same story. A murmur spread across the room, low, uncontained. Anna stepped back from the podium. "There's been a mistake," she said quickly, her voice rising just enough to cut through the noise. "This isn't part of the presentation." Her eyes scanned the room, searching, landing on Nathan, standing in the back, still, watching. For a moment, everything stopped. Vanessa's expression shifted. Not to guilt, not yet, to control. "This is inappropriate," she said firmly, turning back to the audience. "I don't know who's responsible for this, but these are clearly fabricated." The next slide cut her off. Messages, text fragments, names. Elliot. "Same room tonight?" Vanessa. "Nathan thinks I'm with Claire. We're fine." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Vanessa stared at the screen, then shook her head, stepping forward. "No, that's not. Those are taken out of context. This is a violation of privacy." Her voice was breaking now, not from emotion, from pressure, from the collapse of control. Another slide. Audio. A recording. Her voice, soft, intimate, undeniable. "We just have to be more careful." He's starting to notice. The room erupted, not loudly, but intensely. Whispers, phones lifting, messages already being sent. The narrative was shifting in real time, and Vanessa felt it. She turned again, toward Nathan. This time, there was no mask, only realization. Nathan didn't move, didn't step forward, didn't need to. The truth was already doing the work. Vanessa shook her head, her breathing uneven now. "This isn't real," she said, weaker this time. "This doesn't prove anything." But it did, and she knew it. The sequence continued, relentless, precise. Every denial she had ever made, answered. Every lie, exposed. Elliot was already moving, not toward her, away, His expression was controlled, but his distance was immediate, strategic, self-preserving. Vanessa saw it, and something inside her broke.
She stepped back from the podium, her voice gone now, replaced by silence. No more arguments, no more deflection. Because there was nothing left to hide behind. The final slide appeared, simple, unforgiving. Truth doesn't need permission. The screen went black. The room remained still, for a moment. No one moved. No one spoke. Because everyone understood what they had just witnessed. Not just an affair, but a collapse. Vanessa stood alone on the stage, no script, no control, no escape. Her eyes found Nathan one last time. Searching, desperate. But he gave her nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no acknowledgement. Only distance. Because this was never about humiliating her. It was about ending the illusion. Completely. Irreversibly. Nathan turned and walked away. Behind him, the noise returned. Louder now. Messier. Uncontrolled. Just like the truth. The silence after Nathan left didn't last long. It fractured. First into whispers.
Sharp, disbelieving, electric. Then into movement. Phones lifted. Screens glowed. Names were typed, searched, sent. Within seconds, what had been contained inside the Astoria Grand Ballroom began leaking outward. Into inboxes, group chats, private threads, and eventually, the public eye. Vanessa stood frozen on stage as the world she had built started dissolving in real time. Vanessa. The voice came from behind her. Tight, controlled, already distancing itself. She turned. Elliot. For a brief second, relief flickered across her face, something instinctive, desperate. Elliot. This isn't. She started, stepping toward him. He didn't move closer. If anything, he stepped back. Subtle, but deliberate. His expression wasn't angry. It was strategic. We need to be careful about what we say right now, he said quietly, his tone low enough that only she could hear. This situation is volatile. Vanessa stared at him, her breath uneven. You think I don't know that? You need to say something. This is your event. Elliot's eyes flicked briefly toward the crowd, toward the investors, the cameras, the shifting weight of perception. Then back to her. This is your situation, he corrected. The words landed harder than anything Nathan had revealed. Vanessa blinked, her voice tightening. Are you serious right now? I have shareholders in this room, Elliot said, his tone sharpening just enough to signal finality. And the board that will expect a response. And what? Your response is to just stand there. Her voice cracked, louder now. Heads turned. Elliot lowered his voice further. My response is to protect the company. A pause. Cold. Decisive. You should do the same. Vanessa stared at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw the truth. Not the man from late-night conversations, whispered promises, hotel rooms filled with illusions. But this man, the one who calculated risk. Who cut liabilities. Who walked away the moment something became inconvenient. You said this wouldn't happen, she whispered. Elliot's expression didn't change. I said we needed to be careful. That's not the same thing. No, he replied. It's not. Another beat. Then, he stepped aside. Not toward her. Around her. Already disengaging. Already gone. Vanessa didn't follow. She couldn't. Because in that moment, she understood. She had never been part of his world. She had only been an accessory to it. And now, she was a problem. The room no longer belonged to her. It had turned. Completely. Conversations weren't subtle anymore. They were direct. Urgent. Calculated. People weren't watching her with admiration. They were watching her with assessment. Risk. Liability. Damage. Vanessa, can you clarify? A voice from the edge of the stage. Media. A phone already pointed at her. Another voice followed. Is that footage authentic? Were you in a relationship with Mr. Graves? Does your company know about this? Each question hit like a strike, fast, relentless. Vanessa stepped back, her composure unraveling in real time. No. This has been completely misrepresented. Are you denying the messages? I'm saying you don't have the full context.
Then what is the context? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because there was no version of the truth left that she could control, her phone buzzed, once, twice, then continuously. Vanessa glanced down. Notifications flooded the screen. Unknown number, we need to talk. Immediately. PR director, do not speak to media. Call me now. Colleague, what is happening? HR, please contact us as soon as possible. Her breath caught. This wasn't contained, it was spreading. Across the room, she caught fragments of conversation. Unbelievable. Public image.
Completely destroyed. We can't be associated with this. Board will never allow it. Each sentence stripped something away, layer by layer. Vanessa turned in a slow circle, as if searching for something familiar, something stable. But nothing was. Every face had changed, every relationship recalculated, every connection, conditional. She stumbled off the stage. No one stopped her. No one helped her. Because helping her now came with a cost, and no one in that room was willing to pay it. The hallway outside the ballroom was quieter, but not silent. The noise followed her, echoed, amplified by the absence of distraction. Vanessa pressed her hand against the wall, her breathing shallow, uneven. This isn't happening, she whispered. But it was. Every second of it. Her phone rang. She answered without looking. Hello. Vanessa, her CEO. No greeting, no softness, just tension. You need to explain to me what I just saw. Her throat tightened. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? There's context. Personal matters that have been. Personal? His voice cut through hers. You turned a corporate event into a scandal broadcast in real time. I didn't do that. Then who did? Silence. Because she knew the answer. And so did he. We'll be issuing a statement, he continued, colder now. Until then, you are not to represent the company in any capacity. Do you understand? Vanessa's grip on the phone tightened. You're suspending me. I'm protecting the firm. The same words, different voice, same meaning. You should focus on managing the fallout of your personal decisions. The line went dead. Vanessa lowered the phone slowly. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass wall across the hall. Still flawless. Hair in place. Makeup untouched. But her eyes were different. Wide, uncertain, cracking. Everything she had built, her reputation, her career, her carefully constructed identity, was unraveling in real time. Not privately, not quietly, but publicly, completely. And for the first time, there was no one left to blame. Not Nathan, not the media, not Elliot, because every step that led here had been hers. Vanessa slid down against the wall, her strength giving way beneath the weight of it all. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't look, didn't move, didn't speak, because there was nothing left to say. Somewhere in the city, life continued as if nothing had happened. But for Vanessa, everything had. And there was no version of this story where she walked away untouched. The city looked the same the next morning. That was the first thing Nathan noticed. Traffic moved. People rushed. Coffee shops filled and emptied in predictable cycles. Screens lit up with headlines, then refreshed, then replaced them with something new. The world didn't stop for anyone, not even for collapse. Nathan sat by the same floor-to-ceiling window, the same glass of bourbon resting in his hand, untouched, just like the night everything began to shift. Except now. Nothing inside him was uncertain. His phone buzzed on the table. He didn't reach for it immediately. He already knew what it was. When he finally picked it up, the headlines were exactly what he expected. Corporate executive exposed in public scandal at Grays Holdings Gala. Vanessa Cole under investigation following viral presentation. Leak. Grays Holdings distances itself from personal misconduct allegations. Nathan scrolled without emotion. Articles dissected the footage frame by frame. Commentators speculated. Strangers formed opinions with absolute certainty. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, and Vanessa was no longer in control of it. Another notification appeared. A message. From her. Nathan stared at the name for a long moment before opening it. Vanessa, we need to talk. Of course. Now, she wanted to talk. He didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, he stood, straightened his jacket, and stepped out of the apartment. The air outside was colder than usual, sharp enough to feel real. Grounding. Nathan walked without urgency, hands in his pockets, his mind quiet for the first time in weeks. No calculations. No projections. No need to anticipate. Because the outcome was already decided. He found her where he expected. Not at home, not at work, but at the one place that still held some version of who she used to be. A small park along the Hudson. Quiet. Isolated. Removed from the noise. Vanessa sat on a bench facing the water. Alone. Her posture was different now. Not composed. Not controlled. But collapsed inward, as if she were trying to make herself smaller. Invisible. Nathan approached slowly. She didn't notice him at first, or maybe she did, and didn't know how to react. Nathan. Her voice broke slightly when she said his name. He stopped a few feet away. Close enough. Distant enough. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't tense. It was final. Vanessa looked up at him. Her eyes were red, her makeup gone, her carefully constructed image stripped down to something raw. Human. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said quietly. You asked to talk. A simple answer. Neutral. She let out a shaky breath. Everything's falling apart. Nathan didn't respond. Because that wasn't new information. My job, she continued, her voice unsteady. They've suspended me. The board is reviewing everything. I might lose everything I've worked for. Nathan held her gaze. You already did. The words weren't cruel. They were factual. And that made them worse. Vanessa swallowed hard, looking away. Elliot won't even take my calls. Nathan wasn't surprised. He's protecting himself, he said. I thought. She stopped, shaking her head. I thought he cared. Nathan studied her for a moment. You thought he would choose you over his reputation. The question wasn't rhetorical. It was precise. Vanessa didn't answer. Because she couldn't. A long silence followed. Then, I was going to tell you, she said suddenly. Nathan's expression didn't change. When? She hesitated. Soon. That's not a time. I needed to figure things out first. Nathan nodded slightly. You already had. Vanessa looked at him, confusion mixing with frustration. What does that mean? It means you made your decision the moment you chose to lie. Her breath caught. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. It always does. Another truth. Simple. Unavoidable. Vanessa stood up abruptly, closing the distance between them. So what? This is it. You just walk away like none of this matters. Nathan met her eyes, steady, unshaken. It mattered, he said. That's why I didn't ignore it. Then why didn't you fight for us? Her voice cracked, rising with desperation. Why didn't you try harder to fix this? Nathan tilted his head slightly. I did. The answer was calm, certain. You just didn't notice. Vanessa stepped back as if the words had physically struck her. I asked you directly, he continued. More than once. I gave you the opportunity to tell the truth. Her silence confirmed it. But you didn't, Nathan said. You chose to manipulate the situation instead. I was scared, she said quickly. I didn't want to lose you. You already had. The finality in his voice left no room for interpretation. Vanessa's composure shattered completely then. Tears fell, uncontrolled, unfiltered. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking. I know I did. But we can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can. No. The word cut through everything. Clean. Absolute. She froze. Not because he raised his voice, but because he didn't. Nathan took a step back, re-establishing the distance between them. This isn't something that gets fixed, he said. Not after this. Vanessa shook her head, panic rising. You're just going to throw everything away. Nathan's gaze didn't waver. You already did that. Another silence, heavier this time, because there was nothing left to argue, no angle left to defend. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you hate me? Nathan considered the question, actually considered it. Then, no. The answer surprised her. I don't hate you, he repeated. I just see you clearly now. And somehow, that was worse. Vanessa let out a broken sound, her hands trembling at her sides. I lost everything, she said. Nathan shook his head slightly. No, he corrected. You traded it. The distinction settled between them. Sharp, permanent. Nathan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He held it out to her. Vanessa stared at it, confused. What is this? Divorce papers, he said calmly. Already filed. Her hand shook as she took it. You planned all of this, she whispered. Nathan didn't deny it. I prepared for the truth, he said. Vanessa looked up at him, her expression breaking completely. You never loved me, she said, her voice hollow. Nathan met her gaze one last time. I did, he replied. Past tense, clear, final. The wind shifted slightly, carrying the distant sound of the city back into the space between them. Life continuing. Unchanged. Nathan turned, no hesitation, no second look, and began to walk away. Behind him, Vanessa remained standing by the water, the envelope in her hands, her world reduced to consequences she could no longer escape. No reputation to protect, no relationship to return to, no version of the story she could rewrite. Only truth. And the weight of it. Nathan didn't stop walking. Because this was never about revenge. It was about resolution, control. And the quiet, undeniable power of knowing when to walk away. The trap had never been about catching her, it had been about revealing her. Completely, and now, there was nothing left to prove.